What does it feel like to maintain your authority in pressure situations? Picture this. You're in the weekly team meeting and you've just finished presenting a new policy from senior leadership. Say a new budget freeze or a policy or procedure, something that you didn't design, didn't get input into, but you do have to roll it out. At this point, one of your peers, who knows you didn't come up with the policy, decides to question it. Let's call him Mark. So Mark blurts out, "This policy doesn't make any sense. Why are we doing this?" The room goes quiet. Here's what just happened. Mark didn't just challenge the policy. He challenged you. He's questioning whether or not you are fully informed on the topic or whether or not you should be the one delivering the message. And part of you thinks he has a point. You are delivering someone else's message. So what do? Most leaders with reactive authority will do one of two things. They'll get defensive. Well, this came from leadership and they just going through that stuff. And, that actually makes them look more like a messenger. Or they might deflect. They might say something like, "Let's take this offline," or something, which is okay. But in a sense, it kind of makes them look weak. But because you are anchored in your personal authority, you do something different. You lean in, calm, grounded. You say, "Hey, Mark, I appreciate your candor. What specifically doesn't make sense for you?" You're not defending the policy. You're not defending yourself. You're leading the conversation. So you listen. Maybe Mark surfaces a legitimate concern. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Either way, you clarify your thinking, acknowledge what's useful, and move the room forward. That is personal authority. People don't walk away thinking he had a good answer. They walk away feeling something. They walk away feeling what leadership and authority feels like. The pressure of that moment helped reveal it. Here's the thing. Pressure doesn't make leaders lose authority. It reveals how much authority you were carrying in the first place. Most leaders and middle managers have experienced this. You've had to represent policies that not only did you not create, but maybe you didn't fully agree with, but you were still responsible for leading through it. And maybe you were challenged, but instead of responding in your authority, you reacted to the pressure. Now, nobody in that room is going to think any less of you if you just shut Mark down. And they may even think that Mark is a jerk. But you know when you've left something on the table. And that feeling, that's not failure. That's information. It's your system telling you that there's a gap between the leader you are and the leader that you want to be. Most leadership training ignores that gap. In a way, this promotes that feeling of imposter syndrome that people deal with. They give you communication techniques and conflict resolution frameworks. These are helpful, but none of that really works if you're not grounded in your own authority first. So before we get any further along, let me describe how I define personal authority for my clients, because this is really the foundation of everything else we're going to talk about. Personal authority is the signal of strength that your life generates as you align who you are internally with how you show up externally, and especially under pressure. The signal matters because people don't decide to trust you based only on your resume. Your team members, your leaders, and the people who speak well of you when you're not in the room, they all sense your personal authority. They feel it as they interact with you. They feel like there's something different about that person. I can't fully explain it, but I just trust them. That's not personality, and that's not confidence. That's personal authority. Now, here's where the pressure comes in. Most people think the reason authority breaks is because of stress or low confidence. But pressure doesn't cause authority to fail. Personal authority is not fragile. It's revealing. If authority were fragile, it would disappear at random, but it doesn't. It weakens in very specific moments when stakes rise, when visibility increases, when decisions matter more. That pattern tells us something important. Pressure isn't the problem. It's the test. See, pressure shows whether who you are on the inside is showing up on the outside. This is especially important for high performers and faith-driven professionals. Many high performers get promoted early because they execute well. They hit their goals. They don't cause problems. They're dependable. But later, especially at the middle manager level, something shifts. Their direct manager knows that they're good, but their manager's peers barely know who they are. They don't stand out. Not because they lack skill or faith, but because their life isn't generating a strong enough signal. Personal authority is what makes people notice you without you trying to be noticed. Under pressure, many capable leaders use so much energy managing themselves instead of leading others. They soften their words. They hesitate. They're trying to impress rather than lead. The more energy you put into trying to impress, the more you actually leak. This is why trying harder doesn't work. More performance doesn't fix this. Better communication doesn't fix this. If this were a skill issue, it would show up everywhere, but it doesn't. It shows up under pressure. Now, let me define pressure for a moment too. So pressure is not just these life or death situations. Pressure are simply moments that matter to you. Your job matters to you. Your profession matters to you. There are certain conversations that you need to have with people that you might meet that matters to you. That's simply what pressure is. It's recognizing moments that matter. And when something matters to you, you feel a little pressure. Now, the fact that you leak authority in pressure situations tells us that the issue isn't ability. It's alignment between inner identity and outer behavior. See, personal authority forms in a simple way. When who you are and what you believe inside shows up the same way on the outside. The more aware you are of who you are, the more your behavior becomes steady. Now, that steadiness makes you easier to read. When people don't have to guess how you'll show up, trust forms. And when trust forms, authority is recognized. That's how authority works. This is why personal authority is such a key advantage for Christian professionals. Many of you already carry a deep sense of identity. You might even have convictions. But your convictions don't necessarily distinguish you in the marketplace. Let me explain what I mean. There are people who don't believe the same way that you do, but they still have chosen a strategy to show up in the marketplace with integrity and being of service. Why? Well, because it works. Integrity works in the marketplace. Service works in the marketplace. They're doing it out of strategy. You're doing it out of identity. That's your advantage. They're doing it to get a step ahead. You're doing it because you have a standard inside. They're doing it out of strategy. You're doing it out of identity. But here's where most Christian professionals get stuck. They assume that having the right standard inside is enough. They assume that their integrity will somehow speak for itself. They feel that people will just sense their conviction. People won't. Your internal standard only becomes personal authority when it translates into how you actually show up. It has to move from conviction to presence, from belief to behavior. And as you move in this way, people can read that and begin to rely on it. That means that it can't just live in your heart or in your prayers or in private moments. It has to show up in steadiness, clarity, and strength. It has to show up under pressure in the meeting, when you have to make those decisions, and in the conflict. When it does show up, something shifts. You stop trying to impress. You stop over-managing perception, and people start talking about you differently. Pressure is actually helpful when you know how to read it. It doesn't accuse you, it informs you. It shows where your signal is weakened and where your alignment needs attention. That's what the authority assessment is designed to do. It's not a personality test, it's a pressure read. And it helps you see how your personal authority shows up when it matters. There's a link to the authority assessment in the description. If your authority only seems to break under pressure, then pressure is exactly where it should be examined. Personal authority isn't built by adding more effort or performance. It's about stabilizing your standards. You will know it's stable when what's inside shows up clearly on the outside, especially when it's hard. And when that happens, you don't have to try to stand out. You just do. I really appreciate you joining me on this video, and I have a lot to share on this channel. And if you want to work with me as a coach, I have a lot to share around authority. And remember, the authority assessment is in the description below. I'm Coach Arnold, and I'll talk to you next time.